to columnist Peter Bruce, who penned a hard-hitting piece on the business day, describing the SANDF chief as either a fool or a saboteur. For people, Peter, who have watched what went on in Gaza and what continues to happen there, people literally being starved to death, in part because of the intransigence of the Israeli government, apart from the fact that there is famine in Gaza. They will question what is wrong with what General Mapwanya has said there.
You know, South Africa, as I say, has done its piece with Israel. We've now got to sort out the consequences of that with the Americans, and we hardly need anybody, particularly a soldier who should know better, going to Iran and making...
Guys, so those of us who are Christian know a particular scripture that says, when there is no vision, a people lose constraint. I'm beginning to wonder if South Africa is at the moment where people, especially leaders, are beginning to lose constraint. So regarding this visit by the South African National Defense Force General Ruzani Mapwanya, who visited Tehran and announced readiness to enhance military cooperation between South Africa and Iran in this really heated season when South Africa is actually trying to repair its relationship with the United States, knowing fully well that United States has just recently dropped tons of, I don't know what to call them, bombs anyway, but argued in the media that the nuclear enrichment facility in Iran had been wiped out. I saw the video where Trump was actually saying that they've been literally wiped out. We see this general taking a visit to Tehran in what even the presidency says, especially the South African presidency, says they were unaware that the general took this visit. Listen to the presidency.
As you hear the spokesperson of the presidency there, Mr. Mapwanya, and one of the things that he talks about is the visit. We feel one can say that the visit was ill-advised. Not just that, but the comments that suggest support for Iran by the country. I think initial thoughts on just finding out about the exchange between the defense chief and defense leadership in Iran. When you found out about it, were you aware of the visit, DM?
No, I was not aware about the visit. Normally, the Minister of Defense is the person who authorizes such trips outside the country. So the last word has been said by the presidency, and the presidency is the custodian of our foreign policy. So there's nothing one can contest on that.
Is there concern? Yes, there is a concern. At this period of heightened geopolitical tensions, as well as conflict in the Middle East, one can say the visit was ill-advised, and more so the expectation is that the general should have been a lot more circumspect with the comments he makes, which delve into the area of foreign policy that only the president as well as the Department of International Relations are responsible for.
Yeah, you heard it for yourself. So the president, this video actually, in a way, says to me that it appears that the presidency had no clue that the general decided to make this visit to Iran. And the best person who would have heard this from is Angie Motshekga, who is the Minister for Defense, I think, I would argue, in South Africa. But then the one guy who I really enjoy listening to a lot, Bantu Holomisa, who is the Assistant Deputy Minister of Defense, all right, Bantu Holomisa. He also says in a video, in an interview here he has on Newsroom, that he was not aware, he had no idea that Maponya would be visiting Iran. All right. So this really begs the question, and I'm really finding it difficult to understand, because the leaders somehow, is this a reflection of the loss of constraint by the leaders? What is really going on? I saw a report that Mchunu, the suspended police minister, as a result of General Mkwanazi's allegations, and also another top ANC official, who I think they say they are members of the NEC of the ANC, I think the top of the top members, were dishing out threats in a way, were kind of like sending warnings or making statements that will go contrary to the code of conduct of the ANC going forward. Are we seeing the ANC imploding in this? And to cap this all up, the US has actually asked South Africa to write a statement explaining what's really going on. And it would really sound so funny and really, in a way, strange for President Ramaphosa to explain that he had no clue or had no idea that his, South African Defense Force General embarked on such a high-profile visit to the state of Iran. I mean, like, it almost feels as though the country is now in what many people have called free floating, or there was a word I saw in a comment. He said, anyway, just the country in a way without sort of like a rudder in that regard. And it is in the midst of this that this columnist here, I think he's a really fire columnist. His name is Peter Bruce. In this X post argues, how dumb do we get? And he has this really fire interview with Troli from Newsroom, where he's breaking down, the details on why such a trip really has every characteristic of destroying the little that is left from what South Africa is trying to manage in this 30%, or with this 30% tariff that has been hit upon South Africa going forward. It actually almost feels as though he has pulled the wire completely with this one visit to Iran in this really critical times. But one part of this video which I want you guys to watch, and you've seen in the beginning, is how Oli, this journalist, tries to really ask the question of the fact that what the general said, the general was actually in Iran making allegations, not allegations anyway, but assertions that South Africa has always stood for the oppressed. South Africa has always stood for those oppressed voices in the world. And on this visit, he made that assertion once more, to which Oli now asks Peter Bruce that, if Peter Bruce really would agree to the starvation and the extermination, I don't want to use extermination anyway, but to the starvation and, what many South African left-wing parties have called sort of like an apartheid kind of oppression, which the Palestinians are feeling. Oli asks Peter Bruce, what then is wrong with what the general really said? Let's quickly listen to Oli tell us what the general said about this issue in Iran.
So let's go now to an article that was published by News 24, where General Ruzane Maponya is quoted as having conveyed greetings from President Cyril Ramaphosa and the Defense Minister Angie Motshekga. And the quote goes, "The Republic of South Africa and the Islamic Republic of Iran have common goals." I close quote there, open others. And he goes on to say, "We always stand alongside the oppressed and defenseless people of the world." Maponya denounced Israel, and in particular, the bombing of Palestinians while they are standing in line for food.
Yeah, you've heard it. And so it was this question to which Oli was trying to ask Bruce what really was wrong with that statement. And we saw Bruce really lashing out in a way I don't want to spill the beans, but I want you guys to watch this interview. It's a really fire video. And for me anyway, the implications are quite, you know, dilly-dally. I've seen a lot of comments under the video that actually says the general owes no one no explanation. South Africa owes no one any explanation. You know, South Africa is a sovereign country. They can choose who they wish to support and all of that. There were other people who were saying that South Africa is non-aligned and shouldn't be taking sides and all of that. Some other people were actually also saying that, you know, I think I even saw a report recently that says South Africa's unemployment rate seems to be getting now into the 60s. It's getting really crazy. And right now, every kind of solution should be geared towards improving the economic situation so that people can actually have, so that there can even be money to pay out to the unemployed and the oldest people who are on SASA, because the situation is getting more dire. And in the height of this all, we see this conflagration with this South African Defense Force general visiting Iran in this. So it's just, I don't know, man. South Africa, it just seems to be like there's just a new story every single day, highlighting what might be a downward spiral for such a beautiful nation. Let's quickly listen to Peter Bruce in this really fierce interview he has with Oli from Newsroom, and share your thoughts on this whole issue in the comments.
Well, let's stay with this story and speak now to columnist Peter Bruce, who penned a hard-hitting piece on the Business Day, describing the SANDF chief as either a fool or a saboteur. Peter, good evening to you. Thank you for your time. Let's start with what Mr. Magwenya had to say a little earlier, and that is that President Ramaphosa did not know about General Mapwanya's visit to Iran, nor did he sanction the trip. However, that does not mean that the general's diary is controlled by the president. Just that statement alone, how big an impact do you think this is going to have on South Africa's relationship with the United States that they are, or whose relationship they're trying to rebuild?
Yeah, hi. Look, I mean, it will not be without impact. My understanding is that there is actually a team in Washington today, and has been for much of the week, from the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, there to try and negotiate a trade deal with the US in the face of this 30% tariffs that they have imposed on us. And, you know, a picture of the head of the South African Defense Forces sitting in a gilded hall in Tehran, not long after, by the way, the ANC had to be prevented or warned off from renting out or selling Pretoria City Hall to the Iranian government, sitting with the head of the Iranian armed forces while we try and negotiate a trade deal with the US was just beyond embarrassing and beyond foolish.
When you say, let's get into those very comments, because you say he's either foolish or, at best, he's trying to sabotage this country. On what basis?
Well, simply because, you know, the Americans have just attacked Iran. They've dropped tens of thousands of tons of highly sophisticated weaponry on Iranian nuclear facilities. The Americans, not just this administration, but previous ones as well, going back a long way, regard Iran as...
Oh. All right, let's apologize for the break in transmission there. I'm hoping Peter Bruce can still reconnect. The line to him breaking off just as we getting into the meat of the discussion. Peter, I'm told you are back. You broke off a little bit as you were concluding your statement. Can I quickly take you to what has since developed after the media briefing by Mr. Magwenya, who speaks for the president? The Democratic Alliance is demanding what they are saying is an immediate court-martial of the SANDF chief, and this is for gross misconduct and a breach of the South African National Defence Code of Conduct following his pronouncements there. Do you think that they justified in calling for this?
Well, I think some action will have to be taken against him. And, whoever authorized this trip, and it might have been the Minister of Defense, surely somebody would have put a pen to paper to say, okay, go. And if they didn't, if he just went off on his own bat, surely that would be highly irregular, given the circumstances that we are in. We are facing an economic catastrophe if these 30% tariffs come into force. And he's gone and thrown, he's thrown a real stone into the pond, this man. And either he doesn't know what he's doing, or he does. And he's going to certainly have to answer some pretty tough questions when he gets back. I don't think he'll be court-martialed. This is not Cyril Ramaphosa's style. But the question will certainly be asked of Angie Mukherjee is going. And if they didn't know, did he tell anybody? Are generals simply allowed to travel abroad to do business when they please? It's not as if he couldn't have known that South Africa is in a very delicate situation at the moment, diplomatically.
Yeah.
And if he didn't, and if he did it despite knowing, then it is an extremely foolish thing to have done. And he needs to answer for it.
Peter, we need to conclude our conversation because your line isn't holding up. I just want the viewers to get a gist of what General Ruzani Mapwanya said in Iran. And I want to preface that with the statement that was made by Vincent Magwenya, who, when he was briefing this afternoon, said that senior military officers do not engage in foreign policy. So let's go now to an article that was published by News 24, where General Ruzani Mapwanya is quoted as having conveyed greetings from President Cyril Ramaphosa and the Defense Minister, Angie Motshekga. And the quote goes, "The Republic of South Africa and the Islamic Republic of Iran have common goals." I close quote there, open others. And he goes on to say, "We always stand alongside the oppressed and defenseless people of the world." Mapwanya denounced Israel and in particular the bombing of Palestinians while they are standing in line for food. For people, Peter, who have watched what went on in Gaza and what continues to happen there, people literally being starved to death, in part because of the intransigence of the Israeli government, apart from the fact that there is famine in Gaza, they will question what is wrong with what General Mapwanya has said there.
Yeah. Well, it's all about diplomacy, and diplomacy is about skirting around the truth. And, diplomacy is about what is in your country's best interest. South Africa has done a lot to make its case against what the Israelis are doing in Gaza. It can hardly be expected to do any more than it has done. It's already cost the country a lot, as we all know. And for him to add, fuel to the fire is just completely ridiculous. He's a soldier. He's not supposed to be doing this sort of thing. And, it may well be his opinion, and it maybe will be the opinion of most South Africans, but you've got to be careful. It'll be, if there's a price to pay for his indiscretion, who's going to pay it? And, who's going to think that it was worth it? South Africa, as I say, has done its piece with Israel. We've now got to sort out the consequences of that with the Americans, and we hardly need anybody, particularly a soldier who should know better, going to Iran and making his views known at a very delicate time for South Africa. It's just ridiculous, and he shouldn't have done it.